Modern philosophy began with doubt. Since Copernicus and Newton, with the arrival of the natural science revolution and the first industrial revolution, there has been a fierce struggle between schools of thought, between science and theology, between the existence of God and the existence of truth, followed by intense skepticism. There are two main lines of suspicion. One is empiricism, which doubts human intelligence. Doubting objects, free will, God, and causal relationships are all fabricated by the human brain, and only experience is real. From Bacon, Locke, Berkeley, to Hume to the extreme. The problem is that the entire knowledge building of humanity has collapsed. The second is rationalism, which doubts human experience. How can people observe the real world when wearing colored glasses? Experience is unreliable. Only by relying on human rationality and logic can we build a building of knowledge. But the question is, how did such a powerful rationality come about, and what is its relationship with a crude body? Rationalists, on the contrary, have to bring out God, such as Descartes and Leibniz, while Spinoza's approach is the most ingenious and affectionate with the body-mind, nature and humanity, all belonging to the magical nature. Nature is God. Schelling, Hegel, and even Kant were deeply influenced by Spinoza's approach. Kant ended the modern history of philosophy by integrating the key points of all parties. We cannot deny knowledge like empiricism, nor can we easily pull out God like rationalism. Affirming empiricism, also affirming rationalism, human cognition is limited, but there is also knowledge and innate knowledge. People observe phenomena to gain experience, and through prior category processing, in cognition form knowledge. He made concessions to both rationalism and empiricism, being in itself not within the scope of human cognition. God, cosmos, and free will are not within the scope of human cognition. This is the first part. If that's all, Kant is just a mediocre mediator, preserving knowledge. In the second part, Kant proposed practical rationality, which means that in practice, moral laws are discovered, the existence of free will is confirmed, and even vaguely perceived as things in itself. From then on, Kant's system became powerful, with a complex dimension that confirmed knowledge, even freedom, and even touched upon some ultimate, future things through the moral law. This framework became a starting point for various philosophical systems later on. Kant emphasized the limitations of human beings, but also emphasized their subject status, a contradiction that later became one of the core discussions of German idealism. But the Kantian system is simple and crude. He closed the door to God, but opened a window. In pure rationality, many things can exist, such as God and the universe. Kant discovered free will and the importance of practice, but he stopped there. His theories on freedom and practice are both thin and abstract, and the moral laws he values the most are also thin and abstract. In 1783, the United States gained independence. In 1789, French Revolution erupted, and in 1804, Kant passed away. In the 19th century, science and industry developed rapidly, and people no longer doubted science and knowledge. The focus of philosophy was no longer on primitive epistemology and ontology. Practice is becoming increasingly important. With the Glorious Revolution and the Industrial Revolution in Britain, the American Independence Revolution, the French Revolution, a period of great changes began. Philosophy of law, philosophy of history, social philosophy, political philosophy, all require stronger and more scientific philosophical guidance. The top intellectuals of the most advanced countries in the world are busy formulating their own constitutions. How to formulate, how to understand human, how to define the freedom and responsibility of individuals and the state, how to understand revolution, how to accommodate the bourgeois liberal ideas and anti-feudal demands that the French Revolution was spreading worldwide. Kantian philosophy is far from sufficient. The focus of philosophy has shifted to people, freedom, practice, and history. But only the top philosophers are vaguely aware of these. The entire German idealism, later to Marx, is a story that gradually clarifies people, freedom, practice, and history. The kernels of Fichte, Schelling, and Hegel have strong similarities. Fichte first transformed Kantian philosophy, emphasizing the important position of the self in knowledge and emphasizing idealism. He pointed out the obvious loophole in Kant's assumption of the thing in itself. Does something exist and cannot be recognized? Existence itself is a category of cognition. Self-setting, non-self, self-setting self, and non-self. Through a crude dialectic, the world can evolve. Fichte's philosophical framework was rough, but he began to value practice and evolution, emphasizing freedom and explaining how people gradually move towards freedom. Fichte's philosophy of freedom is also reflected in his support for the French Revolution and even left-wing egalitarianism, as well as his call for the German national revolution. Schelling and Hegel, close college roommates. In 1789, in Hegel's second year of university, the French Revolution broke out. They, like the entire intellectual class, were intoxicated with the spirit of that era, the French Revolution, American independence, Enlightenment movement, Constitution, Kant, Rousseau, Goethe, Schiller, Lessing, German Romanticism, German National Revolution, New Religious Reform, Enlightenment People's Teachers, and so on. Fichte's version is crude. How can self and not self set each other mutually? Schelling values natural philosophy more than his predecessors, as he integrates rapidly developing biology and organic chemistry. Why do inorganic substances produce organic matter, and organic matter produce life? Human beings are a part of nature, and nature is a complex evolutionary organism. Where is the ultimate goal with such a clear evolutionary direction? The soul of the world, the absolute identity. This is also the starting point of the world, very reminiscent of Spinoza's philosophy of natural gods. Compared to Fichte's subjective idealism, Schelling's views on nature and absolute identity both have a stronger objective flavor, known as objective idealism. Thinking about evolution inevitably requires the use of dialectics, such as free, will,加practice, quality change, and contradiction unity. Schelling proposed a self-explanatory starting point. Absolute unity suddenly generates an unconscious desire to break the same state, which sounds like the Big Bang theory. In this way, contradictions arise, and nature arises. In nature, consciousness begins to awaken, from lower to higher levels. Subjective spirit is born, entering transcendental philosophy, and humanity begins to practice and create the objective world. Schelling has been too close to dialectical materialism, but after all, his original intention is different. Schelling, as follow-up, fell into a mysterious and difficult to justify state. Subjective spirit entered rational intuition, artistic intuition, and ultimately absolute identity. In his later years, Schelling was no longer sharp, and as a conservative, he was invited by the Prussian government to suppress the reactionary theory of young people at the University of Berlin. At this time, Marx had already graduated. While the spectator Engels took notes and joined the young Hegelians in criticizing Schelling's battle. Late generation can already see the overall framework of Hegel's philosophical system. Hegel did not like the objectivity in Schelling's philosophy, and he went back to idealism. Reality is concept. Ontology and epistemology have since merged. The so-called objective reality is a subjective part, and the world is only subjective. The starting point is like this, and the ending point is also like this, which named the absolute spirit. In order to solve the difficulty of idealism's self-justification, at the starting point of world evolution. Hegel applied the overly complex and mysterious dialectics in logic, determination, nothingness, change, existence, quality, quantitative and qualitative change, essence, phenomenon, reality, concept, subjectivity, objectivity, concept, life, understanding, absolute concept. Through a complex and abstract operation, life was finally born. Compared to the past, Hegelian philosophy is not crude, but rather overly complex, abstract, and obscure. It seems that Hegelian philosophy is even more backward than Schelling's philosophy. Which part of his theory is advanced? He places more emphasis on human history than his predecessors, and when reviewing history, why individuals are always not free, and why overall history tends towards freedom. What is the driving force? What is the strong and sacred emotion that people have when facing religion, infinity, the world, and beauty? These two issues are crucial and have not been resolved by the first three philosophers. Schelling pointed out the arrow of freedom in history as a whole, but did not answer why certain parts of history became unfree, why the Christian spirit retreated, and why the Christian liberation of people was degenerated and revised into the Christian enslavement of people. Why are some nations are advanced and free, while some nations are backward and unfree? And why did the starting point of Schelling's philosophy suddenly appear contradictory from absolute identity? Schelling's philosophy is a cycle of nirvana for the natural gods, while Hegelian philosophy is a life evolution of the gods of ideas. His system is that reality is the concept, and contradictions are universally present. The system constantly evolves, giving rise to life consciousness and ideas, enhancing practical abilities, constantly transforming the world and humanity, becoming more and more free, ultimately evolving into an absolute spirit. Dialectical idealism and Hegel also emphasized that humans evolve with society as a whole. We have seen Marx's framework and in Lenin's swords. Intelligent idealism is closer to intelligent materialism than foolish metamaterialism. The so-called dialectics is not complicated, can be understood as the philosophy of systems theory. Emphasizing the importance of dialectics is just emphasizing the intermediary of subjectivity and objectivity, the practice. Subjectivity can be transformed, created, and objective through practice. This is the pillar of Hegelian idealism. Hegelian philosophy no longer looks rough, but appears tall and self-righteous, making it the pinnacle of classical German philosophy. However, first, before humans reach such a strong and practical ability to turn stones into gold, how can the concept transform to reality? That is, how to understand the universe before the birth of humanity. Human practical ability and freedom have been exaggerated. Second, the inherent contradiction of Hegel's philosophy of history. Freedom is so powerful. Why is it so easy to regress? Greece was once so free and civilized. Why did it disintegrate for thousands of years? Why is Christianity so easy to regress? Why does an advanced nation revive after its decline? Why did the Germanic barbarians become the advanced nation, leading the Protestant Reform? Hegelian philosophy, like Schelling's philosophy, is too abstract, simplified. Third, the most fundamental contradiction between labor and freedom. Labor is the core of human practice. But why are laborers not free? Why are the products of laborers the condensation of human labor, which transformed into capital, becoming the new slave owners and gods that oppress the freedom of laborers? Hegel has come close to the truth. In the chapter of Phenomenology of Spirit, Dialectics of Master and Slave, he is too close to historical materialism and capitalism, but he is too intoxicated with his idealism. Just like Schelling, whose natural philosophy is too close to dialectical materialism, he is too intoxicated with his natural gods and art. Philosophers of the past have gone too far for the sake of natural gods, idealism, and free will, making it increasingly difficult to justify themselves. Their theories have become increasingly twisted, with more and more bugs and patches. Why don't we honestly return to materialism and acknowledge that humanity is a product of nature and a part of it? Nature-humanity practice dialectical evolution history. Along practice and dialectics, what we see is no longer Hegel's twisted abstraction, but rather a philosophy that is in line with reality, including work, productivity, production relations, superstructure, ideology, capital, and so on. This is Marxism, which builds a new set of social science philosophy based on dialectical materialism. If it is not for the correctness and progressiveness of Marx philosophy, it is difficult to explain why two young men, Marx and Engels, have created a lot of advanced and practical social sciences in just a few decades, and how could them calmly face decades of historical turmoil and revolutionary waves? Why could Lenin build a strong theoretical and practical system, just rely on theoretical learning, and clearly devote himself to the Russian Revolution? Why did the Second International and the Third International, despite their failure, demonstrate a high degree of theoretical consistency and reflection? Why can young people in the 21st century quickly comprehend through a few simple manuals? Why does the bourgeoisie arrogantly underestimate Marxism and have an immense fear of Marxism? Modern psychology can easily explain that. Giant babies are self-contemptuous and conceited, both of which avoid reality, while truth, goodness, and beauty are ultimately the core of philosophy.